Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a lovely day and a lovely cup of something. Today, we're going to talk about the truth about making music as your only or main income. Now, this is something that I have done for many years. Many years. It may be a shock to you, actually, how many years that I've been doing this. Because you probably think, gosh, how did this young guy, this 20-something guy, work for so many years? Just kidding. Okay, so welcome to Make Music Income Live. I'm glad to have you here today. I hope everything looks good on the camera side. If anybody is in the chat and wants to say hi and you hear me, it seems like I've got audio. And it seems like we're broadcasting. As far as I can tell, these are so much fun for me because I just get to talk directly to you. And if you comment, I can really directly talk to you. And we're just going to have some fun today, but it's going to get real up in here today, folks. You're going to hear stuff that you might not be so super crazy about hearing. Ronan, good morning. Good sound. Great. Thanks for being here so much. I appreciate it. You're Johnny on the spot on a lot of things on our Discord and in this live and in my video comments and things like that. So I really appreciate that. So, like every musician, you've probably had at least one moment or probably many moments where you thought, if I could just make all my music income or make all my income from music and quit my job entirely and make music all day, that would be my best life. That would be my dream life, right? Can I get an amen in here about that? Who everybody was in here. M-Tune, good day to you or good evening, wherever you are. And thanks for joining me again here on my live. I really appreciate you being here. So today, like I said, I want to talk about that dream of if I could just make music all day long, life would be a dream. All I would have to do is make music, money would come in, and I wouldn't have to work a job that I hate. And it would just be a beautiful, beautiful life. And guess what? It doesn't suck. When it's working, it's pretty fun. It's pretty awesome. And so we're going to talk about the truth, though, from someone who has done nothing, and that's me, but make music income as my only income for the past 22 years. Now, I made income before that in music as a producer, an arranger, and a composer, and gigs, and all the other things, 50 ways, right? And I've been doing it for 22 years, though, completely without a net. In other words, only a few times did I have any consistency of income that I knew would be there. I mean, I've had consistent payments from people. Hey, Pete, thanks for joining today. I've had consistent payments from people because I changed my system years back and started getting consistency on a month-to-month basis, kind of. But you can never really be sure with the people who are you're working with that they can afford the payments every month or that they can afford to drop $1,000 like they said they would. And that continues to be an issue for me as a person who makes their only living from music sources. So as I've said a few times on this channel, when money is good and you can cover all your bills and all you do is sit here in your studio with your keyboards or your guitars or whatever, and that's all you do, and you sit here all day and you got a pool outside and money, all bills are covered, you're eating well, you have shelter, you have a nice house, and I don't live extravagantly. We have just a normal kind of house, but you have food, you have everybody's happy, everybody's bellies are full, and you're watching all the movies and TV shows. And we live here in Orlando, so we have Disney passes and we go to water parks all the time, and life is good and life is wonderful until it's not. Until suddenly money is tight and people are looking at you. You can't pay your rent, or it's iffy. You can't pay the electricity bill, which is due today. You can't pay other bills. You get behind in your credit cards. All these things happen. You go through your savings because for whatever reasons clients couldn't pay this week or this month or whatever, or somebody decided to quit. Suddenly people and spouse and parents and children and your friends are looking at you like, why can't you provide for your family? At that point, it seems like the stupidest idea anybody ever had. You're like, are you kidding? Making your living in music? What an idiot. You are a complete idiot for even trying this. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining this morning. So, yeah, the truth about making music as your main income is a touchy one. And I'm going to get into some really personal things today about what it's like on my end from someone who absolutely does this. I mean, the beauty about my whole channel is that I am not a guy talking about stuff I don't know about. And it's not even that I'm like this big expert on making on licensing, certainly not on sync licensing. I'm still kind of, making my way through the sync licensing world. Trying to get the camera right there. And I'm still at the very start of that. Stock, yeah, I've had some experience over the past year and a half and make monthly income from that. And but I only live on music income, nothing else. Even jobs that I do outside of producing music or producing for clients, or producing stock music, or producing music for sync, or producing music for any reason, or doing gigs or anything like that. The only reason I'm able to do that is because I have done it. And the only reason I made this channel even was to talk about making music income. It's almost like, what a great name for a channel. So what I want to talk about today is how I've made a living in the past 22 years completely on music work, what it has been like, how I've got paid, what I did to get paid, um, what the ups and the downs and things like that, how that's changed through the years, especially over these past 5 years, as I've started to veer more towards my own composing again, and licensing, and finishing my music masters and all that kind of stuff. And my plans for the next phase, which is starting now, I mean, literally in 2022, the next phases have begun. Income has started in music teaching, in music income through stock and sync, and then music income through my YouTube channel that I made. And so that's the next phase, and talking about that. And then the final phase, my final phase, you could say, for the ultimate music chill life. And so we will get there by the time this live is done. Mtune says, for me, this time earning the money from my music, I'm in desperate need, trying my best. Dude, I get it. I got to pay electric bill today. I have to. Today's the last day I could pay it. And I'm going to have to rustle up some money from a few clients who haven't paid yet in order to pay that, and a tax bill coming up. And it just continues to mount. And it's the same for me as it is for you. I'm in desperate need of income this week. There's some really serious prayer going on here in this house. But that happens all the time. That happens through this entire music life. That's what this video is all about. And that's all I'm going to talk about, is making music income to survive sometimes, and also to live a great life sometimes. And that's a nice name for a channel. So as a matter of fact, uh, let's talk about a little money making here. Today's Make Music Income Live is brought to you by our music licensing mastermind. Now, uh, Mike, who is in the comments here, is part of this private Zoom class that we have every Monday at 12 noon. We have about a dozen composers and producers and artists in this music licensing mastermind. It's a private Zoom class. We have it every single Monday at noon. It's pretty much as reliable and dependable as this live hopefully will be on Thursdays at 11. But every single Monday we have this. And then what we do is I will send out the replay for those people who can't make it. But if you would like to get more work, if you'd like to figure out how to get more happening with your music licensing and want to find out what I'm doing on a weekly basis in music licensing that I'm not talking about in my videos, and get more personal training, because you get to talk to me in Zoom every week. And sometimes I'll hang out with somebody after we're done with the hour-long meeting and we'll talk a little bit. So it's kind of like some free extra training in that personal training. This is a steal of a deal. I only charge $25 a month for this now. I have just decided that that is a fair price. $25 a month, and you get 4 or 5 one-hour Zoom meetings with me and a few other writers and producers like Mike who are in Mastermind. Thanks so much, Mike. Mike says, Mastermind is awesome, learning so much. Yeah, we've had some great conversation, and Mike is really ramping up his licensing, and we worked on one of his songs last week, and it is really good. And so you really want to be part of this, because we go deep every week into what is happening that week. And I say that week because something new is happening all the time in licensing, in the licensing worlds, personally with me, but also personally with everyone in the mastermind. So I'm mainly leading it, like I lead this, and I come every week with as much information as you're going to get today. I bring as much information to that as I do when I talk about what I'm going to be talking about today. So it's very interactive while still being led by me. So check out the link in the description below, or you can go to MakeMusicIncome.com/coaching. I don't know if there is any information in, I think, yeah, there's automatically information in all my videos. So there should be some information below right now. If you have to go right now, don't go, stay here with me, and let's talk about making music as your only income, or at least your main income. But do check out the mastermind. I think you would really like it. And I think the price is just unbeatable. Compared to what my coaching prices are, $25 a month. That's a steal. All right. So back to the truth about music as your only income or as your main income. Now, some of you might get to the point where it's one of your incomes, but you still have a part-time job that you work. I talked with Dave Croft in a video that we did a few weeks ago, and he works as a full-time professor at Full Sail University here in Orlando, and we are going to be getting together soon. And so, yeah, I absolutely understand what it's like to work a job. I worked a job for many years and produced on the nights and weekends, a full-time job, and several different full-time jobs, and then produce on nights and weekends. But in 2000, I had the opportunity to kind of go to work for a producer. And that's when I left corporate work. Hodge Beach says, go crazy, Mike. Yeah, Mike. Pete Mason said, this is such a powerful subject. Thanks for this. My pleasure. This is something that is emotionally and spiritually very important to me to talk about, because this is real stuff, y'all. This is real stuff. This is the real deal. I mean, we all talk and dream about making music only, right? That's what everybody wants to do. Dane says, do you listen to individual tracks to see if one is on the right path for submission to music libraries as part of the $25 monthly fee? All right. Interesting question. And I'm going to interrupt what I'm talking about in this video to answer this question, because I am considering a second either live or something on my Hello Composers thing, but I'm thinking about a second live day for Make Music Income on Tuesdays, because I'm really trying to get to the point where I have 3 pieces of content every week for you guys and gals. And but especially I want to get I've seen some other people on some other channels do like these listening sessions where they do live listening sessions, and people send in a file. The music licensing thing, we don't do a ton of listening to songs in that. We got too much to talk about. There's too much to talk about from what I'm got going on that week, what my message is that week on licensing, what I'm trying to talk about as far as what I see happening, and then what everybody else is talking about. So there's too much to talk about, Dane, in that. But Jesse is starting that whole that whole thing. I can't remember what he calls it, but his song, what does he call it? I can't remember, but yeah, he's really rolled that out recently, and he's using a bunch of great guys to do that. That's great. I probably would like to do something that's based more on, is it right for licensing or whatever you want to use it for? I probably wouldn't get into as much as what Steve does, my buddy who I do my weekly, okay, whatever. I probably wouldn't get into as much. Hold on just a second. I got to put this person out of here. Online strips without closing. Woohoo. Okay. So, I probably wouldn't use that. Hold on a second. Yeah, Sync Pro feedback, right? And that's a great thing that he's rolled out. My only downside with that, to be honest with you, is the fact that he is no longer, really. I mean, I take it back. I mean, last night I just watched a great thing that he did about stuff, but I'm getting a little bombed here by this guy here. Hold on a sec. I just want to get all this stuff out of here. So I don't know. Are you guys seeing all this stuff? But anyway, so like I said, tip money, LOL. Yeah, getting bombed by this person here. Let's see if I can hide this person. Okay, so anyway, what was I talking about? Okay, so I would really like to get back to a thing where I can do something on Tuesdays that's similar to this, Dane. That is very much a weekly listening to your stuff. I also want it to be somewhat like Jesse's. I want it to be somewhat constructive criticism. I see who's my guy? Clint. If you guys know Clint Music, he's great. We've been talking. We're going to do a kind of a video, hopefully exchange, but he's going to be on my channel or I'm going to be on his, or both. But Clint is really great. I think he does great work, and super dope, as he would say. But I really like him, and he does a weekly listening session. And I would like to steal that idea completely from him and just do that kind of thing where people submit songs, really just a live thing for free. Now they can tip. He does that very well. People can use super chats to jump to the top of the line. And so I might do that, but I'd like it to be live. I'd like it to be something that everybody can benefit from with every review. And I probably wouldn't go too much into production like Stevie B does. I would stay mainly with, is this ready? And if it's not, where do we go from there? I do that a lot in my individual consulting and coaching. We will really talk about tracks and get into deep compositional things, and we'll get deep into production things. But all right, that was a complete rabbit hole. So we're coming out of the rabbit hole, digging out and getting back to the truth about music as your only income, because I got a lot to go through. Although I got at least another hour. So hang out and get a warm beverage, and let's take a sip and get back into the content here. So, like I said, I left uh, corporate work in 2000 and went directly into the studio as my only income, working for another producer who had lots of work. And I also had a few producing jobs that were coming to me, but I had no choice. I had to make music income at that point because uh, it was something that was already happening. And so I just decided to just go full tilt and go after it. And so I also began going to Nashville a lot during this time, and I started to go to just any kind of conference or anything I could go to to do all that kind of stuff. And so, I just really got going on trying to figure out how to um, hold on just a second here. Gets rid of them a little bit, I think. Okay. Um, I just about got rid of all these things here. Um, to really figure out how to live a life of complete um, music income, and I did that through producing mainly. And at first, it was people coming in and paying um, studio time. Now, I'll admit to you, in the first few years, it was really super lean. But slowly it built up. And by about the third or fourth year, it was starting to be pretty consistent, high five-figure income that I could support my family with. And I was doing music full time. I was also starting to go to Nashville a lot during this time because I lived at the time in Kentucky. Hey, Lewis, thanks for joining. Sean, thanks for being here. Music to Motion, thanks for being here and for that answer. Stay Golden. Do I mediate? Do you mean do I consult? If you mean consulting, then yes, absolutely. You can just go to MakeMusicIncome.com/coaching, or coach. Can't remember which one it is, but just go to MakeMusicIncome.com. You'll find it there. Like I said, I started going to Nashville and started finding more clients, and it was a few years, but things did finally take off. And yeah, it is personally from a having a spouse type of thing and having children and trying to pay bills, and your wife has a job. And I think in the first few years of my music, she was really making more than I was at her job. But eventually, we were able to mostly live off my income, and she just worked part-time or worked a kind of full part-time or something like that. And so, all right, so where am I on my journey? At some point, I think it was 2005, we decided to move to Nashville because we were living in Kentucky, in central Kentucky area, and I was making a full-time living as a producer there. So if you can make a living as a music producer in Kentucky, you can make it anywhere, I think, because Kentucky is not exactly the music capital of the world. There's a lot of great music in central Kentucky, but a lot of it is bluegrass or country or rock or things like that. But and there's a few acts that have come out there. Exile and different people have come out of my town, Lexington, where I'm from. But eventually I was going back and forth to Nashville all the time for years before we moved there. And finally, it got to the point where it was time to move there. Hey, Stevie B, thanks for joining and being in here. We are getting into all sorts of stuff today. And we're getting bombed by some naked clothing, naked something. I don't know what it is, but we're having a good time in here today. So cool. Music to Motion said grew up in Nashville. Well, I moved to Nashville in 2005, and that's when things really took off because I had a website and I was able to reconfigure the website to say, "Hey, come to Nashville," and that was everyone's dream. That was everyone's dream who were my clients, artists. Hey, Shimon, what's up? Thanks for being here. So that was everyone's dream to come to Nashville and work. So that kind of was a real boost to my business. And I started working with some of the top players and some of the top uh, p- engineers and all that kind of stuff. And all of that made me money because people wanted to work with them. And once they would come in and hear the sound that we could provide to them, and this is, by the way, still happens to me right now because that's still part of my living. But that became my business, and I'll talk about in a minute what I did to make music income individually. But we had several six-figure years in Nashville, and as a working music production company involving hundreds of people in Nashville. I mean, the secret to my success was other people, and that is probably another video. As a matter of fact, that was the kind of second video that I gave everybody a choice between this week. Should I talk about the truth about making music income and what it's really like, or should I talk about session players? Should I talk about um, so that's really weird. Okay. I don't understand even what that means, but I don't want to know, Glenn. Thank you for being here, though. Um, okay, so moving on. Our family had always felt the Florida calling for years. We went here on vacation. We came to Disney like crazy people since '95. So eventually we decided to move here so I could get to the point where I wanted to, because I knew I wanted to pursue a master's in music. And so before I started that in Tennessee, we made the move to Florida, to here in Orlando, and love it here. This is the place to live if you're going to make music for a living. You want to be near creative places like Disney, like the beach, and things like that. And so um, I moved the family here, as I say, and off we went. And here we are. And the business continued to do well after moving. I even had one of my best six-figure years down here, just about 3 years ago. I had my biggest year ever down here. And so, but things were changing when about the time we moved here, a couple years after we moved here. It was really, hey, Myrtle Beach, great, Sean. After we moved to here and I started my master's, I had also started kind of my interest in licensing, and I knew licensing was where I wanted to make music income. And so I was segueing into licensing. I was getting into music, my music master's, as a hopefully to get to the point where I would finish that and teach. And we'll get to all that here in a minute. And that was kind of my focus because I knew licensing and still feel that licensing is the present and future of music income. I believe it. And probably not necessarily stock, but sync licensing especially. And if anybody in this thing is wondering, oh, sync licensing, that's got to be just so full of people that there isn't any more money there, then you're not watching all the billions of programs that are happening that on all the channels, on the Netflix and the Prime videos and all of that. So I just really think that there is more content out there that needs music than producers to produce for it. That's what I think. That may or may not be true, but I certainly think that way. All right, let's talk a little bit about the reality. Hey, Love 3, thanks for getting here. Glad you're here. So let's talk about the reality of making music income and how I made music income for clients, what I did to actually make income for them. So basically what I did was to average six figures a year back then, this is what I did for clients. I consulted with them. And by the way, I still offer consulting to clients all sorts of clients, artist clients, but certainly you guys and gals and anyone who is making sync or stock or any kind of music and they need consulting on which way to go next in order to make music income. That's what I coach about, and that is available at MakeMusicIncome.com. You can find that information there. But consulting was my first step, and that's kind of what made me different. And I think what made my income actually work and how I was able to build this company so successfully, especially during the Nashville years where people could come to Nashville and spend a day at a major recording studio or a major label and sit down with me and talk about how to make a living. And so that was a big part of what I did, consulting. Producing and recording was the next logical step. They came in to consult. We talked about what they wanted to do. Um, I kind of skipped over the song part, but then we would go into recording and producing it. I would produce and I would hire players and engineers and all that stuff. And then we would do the marketing for them too. And we would do their photography, their artwork, their web stuff, their socials, their products, their radio, their publicity, videos. And then we would release and repeat. And every client would just do continued releases. Some would do one-offs, but a lot did repeated releases. So that's basically how I made income. Like I said, at first I started by the hour in the studio, but eventually, as I started doing these projects for people and they were wanting to do full CD projects, full 10-song or more projects, then I started to charge more. And eventually my personal cost, just the cost people paid me for a full 10-song album, was about $6,000 over the life of the project. But I did, like I said, everything from consulting to helping them with their songs to producing them in the studio, all the players and marketing. Now they paid the players, they paid all the outside costs, but they paid me just my costs. And the reason I mention that is because sometimes you might take on a producing job for somebody and take on all costs, which means you have to pay players. If you have to hire an engineer, you have to pay the engineer. If you have to hire a mastering person, you have to pay mastering. And yeah, you can charge $1,000 to somebody for a job, but end up having to pay most of that out to people to do stuff for you. And I never did that. That wasn't, and most producers do that. Most producers would charge $25,000 for a project or more. And that's a good question. I'll get to that in a second, Steve. And they would probably take a percentage somehow of the thing. But I would just charge, $2,000 up front and then $1,000 payments until they were done. Eventually, I kind of moved to a monthly payment model, which I still use now, where people just pay me on a monthly payment on say the first. So I know that I have 10 people paying me $300 on the first, and I know I'm getting $3,000 at the beginning of the month to pay bills, to pay rent or mortgage or whatever. And that really worked as good as anything in this business. So like I said, different producers do it differently. Now, Steve just asked in my chat, Eric, did you take a percentage on their album sales for producing the music, or points, as they say? And so I will just ask you this in the chat. Points on what? Because what are you going to take points on? Every CD they sell in their concerts? Are you going to take a percentage of the pennies, literally pennies they make on Spotify? Are you going to take a percentage of the CDs? And if you have 20 clients at a time that you're producing, how in the great wide world of sports, as my engineer in Nashville says, are you going to collect from every person and figure out? I mean, that the logistics of that alone, trying to figure out how to collect money. So no, I never did a percentage of their album sales. As a matter of fact, that was one of my selling points in getting them as clients. Said, listen, when we are done, I'm done. You're done paying me. And it made it very clean for clients. Usually people would say, okay, come on in. We're going to take 50% of what you make and you can take 50. We'll sell it ourselves. You buy CDs from us and all this stuff. I never did that. I got paid like a session player, except I was paid monthly. Almost, you can more liken it to a manager. I was paid like a manager every month. And so that all worked out well. And that has been I say it worked out well. There's been good and bad about making a full-time living as a music producer. And you could add to that adding, and I've added stock music to that over the past year and a half. I've added sync licensing to that. I haven't seen actual income to my bank yet from that. That is all still in its, stuff's in libraries. We're hoping to Medi Oh, do I meditate? Yes, I do, Stay Golden. I do meditate. It's more prayer for me, but it's kind of meditation and then prayer kind of mixed. I also do a lot of chilling out with a fireplace. I use YouTube for a lot of things, but a fireplace is one of them, or a beach scene or something like that. And then I will just sit in there and kind of meditate and think about projects. I always have lots of creative, you know what, meditating for me, a lot of times is just going over to Disney and sitting and thinking about projects I want to do, about songs I want to make. And that's really good meditation for me. Poolside chilling, absolutely. Beachside, go to the beach. All I need is like 3 things at the beach. All I need is 4 things at the beach. I need a chair, I need an umbrella, I need a cooler of beer, and I need some tunes in my ears that are not mine or my clients. Just like lo-fi chill jazz or better yet, Latin jazz or beach music or stuff like that. Stuff that I can just sit there and feel and after about 2 beers, I am meditating my butt off. It is a nice day on the beach. That's probably our happy place, my wife and I, and that's probably our next move. If we move out of Orlando, it'll be west towards the beach for sure. So yeah, poolside beach time. Ronan says, "You and my wife with the YouTube fireplace." Hey, I don't know anything about what you're talking about there, Ronan, but okay, I get it what you're saying. I was just joking. Walt Williams, lots of great plans. Looking forward to becoming more involved. Well, I'm glad to have you here, Walt. Thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to talk to you and have you here live. Bradford Knight says, "Do you and Stevie B master your own recordings?" Stevie B says, "I do," and it's gotten to the point where I do as well. Bradford, I paid for mastering for 20 years. Everything I made before and after Nashville and during, I have a great mastering engineer, but he's $100 a song at least. He's actually more like 100 or 150 to 200 a song, but for me, he's around 100 to 125 a song. I just don't have time, dude. I'm cranking stuff out. I just Music to Motion says, now I want a vacation. I haven't seen a beach in probably 30 years. Well, it helps to live just an hour away from one. So that's one of the perks of living here in Florida. But yeah, it's just gotten to the point where I can't afford the time, Bradford, to spend money, even without the money, to try to send everything to my mastering engineer and get it out when I need to get it out, whether it's a brief that has to be sent or I'm trying to get something up to stock or whatever. There's just too much. I'm literally working on dozens of songs per month, if not 25 to 50. There's just too much to be going back and forth from a mastering engineer. So we both have our own mastering chains that we use, our own mastering software that pretty much does the job. Is it as good as sending to a professional mastering engineer? Of course not. But I just don't have. And Randy, if you're watching, dude, sorry. I wish I had more to send you and more time, because I love my mastering engineer to death, but I'm just not able to do that anymore. Okay, so so far in this story, we've talked about that it can be dumb and smart to be a music person. We've talked about how I kind of made a music business, and uh, and we've talked about me moving here, and we've talked about what I used to do and how I did it. But then what's happened lately is the well has dried, and this is the downside of and the truth about making music your only income. When clients go away, when everything changed. I mean, we moved to Florida, and like I said, I was moving into licensing. I was moving into my master's. I still had tons of work in Nashville. I started developing my engineers into producers for my artists so that I could just run kind of the higher president type stuff of the label slash production company that we had. And I knew that I was focused more towards teaching and licensing. But everything as it happened, started to grind down at once. The CD, which had been what every client of mine had been trying to make in order to go out and sell it and make money, as you know, has continued to drop as something people want. Now, I just heard the stats the other day. The CD actually still made a bunch of money last year, but it continues to drop every year. And we've gotten into the singles culture now, which is all well and good. And I still do a lot of work. I do singles every day for clients, literally, but they can't really make any money off of them. They put them on CD Baby or into Spotify, however they go into Spotify or Apple or whatever. And there's just no money there unless they get lucky, like our friend Dan Barracuda, who is not lucky. He's just really good and focused at it. And they get a viral type of song that hits a playlist. But almost nobody does, because my main client is a Christian music client, and Christian music is a very small, or they would be a jazz client, or something like that. But I work in genres, smaller genres, which don't pop on Spotify as much as maybe other things do. But all that being said, look at my video here. When I put the card up there for my video with Dan Barracuda, who makes music in Latin guitar, and he uses two guitars and hits every week is hitting these amazing marks on Spotify and paying his rent with Spotify. So it can happen in small genres. But anyway, the CDs weren't selling. I was less interested in artist work, and artists are less interested in artist work right now. I don't know which lost interest first, but it kind of happened both ways. And then money has changed a little bit. Music Motion says, I've had some sync placements, but they were in a foreign country. No sign of BMI place payments yet. I got this exact same thing, probably backwards. It's been about 2.5 years since the first couple shows aired. Yeah, I had some stuff air in December. We'll see if there's, apparently it's through my BMG library. So we'll see if there's any payments for that, either upfronts or in the back end. But I won't know that for months, if not 9 months or 6 months or so. Stevie B says, older folks still love their CDs. What if CDs became vintage cool like vinyl? I'm sure they will. Cassettes have come back. If cassettes can come back, CDs can come back. But CDs are not dead. They're only dead to us, to people who are probably on their computers all day or their phones. Most everybody uses their phone for music that is probably watching this. But in other countries, in other genres, especially not necessarily contemporary Christian, but gospel, Southern gospel, if you're a person who loves to shop at thrift stores, no judgment. I'm just saying, if you're a person who loves thrift, or you're a person who lives in that kind of flea market kind of world where you love that stuff, you likely are still listening to CDs. Back when my wife ran a thrift store a few years ago, this was just 2 years ago, maybe even just a year ago, they move CDs like crazy. People bought CDs all the time. And so there is a segment of society that still listens to CDs for sure. And if you look at the RIAA stuff, I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, 2021, there were still hundreds of millions of CDs sold, like almost 500 million CDs sold. It's not dead. It's not dead. They're still in stores. They're still in Walmart, Target, not much of them, but they're still there. And artists are still selling them at their concerts. They're selling them in packages with other things, but that's a whole nother video that I want to make, that I have on my content calendar, which is called, What is the replacement for the CD? How do we replace the CD? So yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. So getting back to the truth, and here's the truth, folks, is getting tougher to make music income from what I had done for the past 22 years, which is produce artists on a monthly basis. And here's why. The CD is dropping. Singles don't pay them as much. It's tough to really find following unless you are on it all day. Even if I'm helping them, it's hard. If I'm making music videos for them and they are putting them on YouTube and putting them on Facebook and putting them on Instagram, it's just there's just so much out there. And being an artist is really, really hard. And I think a lot of people are giving up quicker than they ever did, but especially the people that I've been working with over the past 20 years or so or more, they're all just giving up. They're all just saying, you know what, I'll make music locally. I'll make music on my website for my friends and family, and that'll be enough. But that's not enough to pay me. That's not enough to pay Nashville players and Nashville engineers and photographers and video makers and all those things. They're going to just do it on the cheap. And so that has changed things a little bit for me. So my money has changed. My money has become, instead of being 100% artist work and being supported by all the people that I produce, it's now about 70. It's getting to the point where it's like 65 to 75% of what I make. And then the other parts are all sorts of other jobs. Um, like I said, I finished my master's, and that's taking a while to translate into teacher income, although it has started to generate some teaching income this year and hopefully more soon. I'm in interviews right now, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I started this little thing called Make Music Income, this channel. And surprisingly, uh, I was just hoping to kind of share my experiences with stuff and maybe get into this conversation with people like this Stevie B guy and Daniel from Stock Music Licensing and Jesse at his channel. And as it turns out, I've got to speak to all of them. And I'm doing a podcast now with Stevie B every week, and we're having a ball and we have a lot of fun. And so, yeah, looking at the chat here, Walt Williams says, um, Southern gospel concerts, it's where CDs sell really great. Absolutely, dude. And if I liked Southern gospel, I could probably still have a lot of clients, but I can't do the Southern gospel, man. Can't do it. It's just not for me. No, can't do it. And that's where you get to as a producer, as a music maker, and you're going to find this in stock or sync or anything. You're going to just find genres or processes you're not willing to do. Stevie B and I both know of a library that I'm in, that he looked at and he's like, man, I just don't know. It just didn't feel like what he wanted to do. And to me, that's what Southern gospel is. I could do it if I just I am considering changing my site back to that um, focus on Christian and gospel music, but my versions are way more contemporary. I work more on the contemporary side and the R&B side, and so I will change it back again. That's not in my long-term plans as my main income, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so money has changed for me this year, and it's gone down. It's seriously gone down. And to be honest, folks, it's been a struggle over the past 6 months. And now I was saved for a little bit in 2019 or 2018, 2019, 2020, because I got a job with a local church. And that kind of filled in the cracks, but it also hid the fact that my company was making less and that I was making less as a producer. So it kind of really messed with things. It messed with and so when I stopped it, we were just in the middle of COVID. I mean, we weren't even at the vaccine yet. So this was middle of 2020, and the church had gone through COVID and it blew it up. And so I kind of got out of that job and went back to full-time production work again. And this is even before I got into stock work and even before I got signed to my first sync licensing library. So it was touch and go, and it's still, even ever since then, it's been harder. 2021 was the year that we all realized nothing was going to change. 2022 is the year that we all are like, okay, now what are we going to do? And that's where I am a little bit. Uh, now, stock music did start to provide income in 2021. I think I averaged around $400 to $500 a month with stock music, and I learned a lot about it. And then I started this channel, and that has taken off thanks to people like Stevie B, thanks to people like Daniel, thanks to people like Jesse, thanks to Taxi, and much probably to their chagrin. And they have all helped my channel grow to the point where it's now monetized. And in April, maybe I might see my first in little bit of income from that. It's small, as Stevie B will tell you, even with a channel, and Stevie's getting to 4 or 5,000 subscribers now, which is killer. But I'm almost at 2,000, but it's not much money a month, folks. It's $100 or so. So it's not like we're killing it in our bank accounts with that. But it's nice. It's nice. It's nice that there is income coming from the work that we're doing on our channels. And everybody's trying to monetize their channel in some way. And I struggle with that. I didn't really get into a YouTube channel to figure out how to monetize it. And as Steve will tell you, I'm still struggling with how to figure out how to monetize this channel. I'm used to services work. I've been providing services for people. And so to me, that's how I will continue. Those are the first things that I offered from my channel was coaching and also the mastermind every week. And so, yeah, if you haven't checked those two things out, check out coaching and mastermind. All right, let's look at the comments here. Rona says, Amoeba here in Los Angeles is still selling CDs and vinyl at a pretty high rate. Yeah, they're both selling. I'm going to do a live or a video soon about what is happening with music sales. I think this applies to this channel. I think that people who think that the music business is dead, do you know that the music business, gosh, what was it last year? It made the most it's made since 1999. Not adjusting for uh, for inflation, but it was huge. It was very, very huge. 4 billion or 400 billion or 40 billion. Maybe it was 400. I don't, it was huge. I think it was like 40 billion, something like that. But it made the most it's made since 1999. It has rebounded the music industry. Yeah, downloads take up 80 something percent. I mean, streaming takes up 80% of that. Downloads are next, but they're fading. And then CD and vinyl are after that. And vinyl is not doing as great because of the shortages they've had. So it's really hard to get vinyl made these days. All right, looking at comments. It's moving fast here. Music Emotion said, I met a lot of friends through just connecting via things like chat, Jesse's platform. Music Emotion, if you're not on our Discord, go down below and join our Discord, dude. You need to be part of that if you're not, because boy, our Discord is popping with lots and lots of conversation, sometimes too much conversation. All right, Love 3 says, here in Italy, it is sort of a miracle to find a record shop still open. Same in America. There's record shops like vinyl shops, but they're like specialty type stores, but not many. You have to really search and find them. You can still find a few CDs at Target, at the big chains like Target or Walmart or something. But Music Motion says, interesting fact that CEO of Taxi Michael grew up in Ottawa, Illinois, which was right next to the town I first lived in, Marseille. That is interesting. Lewis says, hey, all, currently into creating stock music as a side hustle, which was going great until motion array changes. Believe me, we're all in that same boat, bro. And I'm really interested in people's taxi sync strategies. Wow. We could do a whole video on taxi sync strategies. And also, Lewis says, did you have a portfolio ready to apply or just jump in and start creating as per the request they put out? Lewis, I think that's the only way to do it. And Stevie and I are both doing this now. I'm sure there's other people doing this, but I think the only way to do it is respond to briefs and write for the briefs. Don't try to just force a square peg in a round hole because you think it's close to the brief. Write for the brief, and that's how you'll do best. If you don't get it forwarded, then you have another song to put into stock or wherever you want to put it. So that's the main strategy, really. But I have some taxi videos if you want to go to my taxi videos and watch those. They kind of talk about my taxi strategies, especially my taxi strategy for this year. It's a whole video on it. So you can find that in my videos. I'll put a link right here to it eventually, but you can just find that in my videos, Lewis. Stevie B also grew up in Ottawa. Wow. So Stevie and Michael are Ottawa buddies. Cool. Production world. Yeah, small world. Steven says, "Oh, wait a minute, Ottawa, Illinois. That's not Canada. It's close, I guess, kind of." All right. So Bradford says, "Do you think streaming services are bad or good for the music industry?" Good. Why would they be bad? The CDs were not changing because of streaming. CDs were changing because they just they weren't applicable. I mean, I guess you could say they changed because people don't, you can't play a CD on your phone. So, and things just change. Records changed. I mean, we changed from sheet music to vinyl, or I should say sheet music to acetate records in around the turn of the century in 1900. And before that, you know how you did music? You did it in uh in your home with sheet music around the piano. And sheet music was the bomb. Sheet music was the industry. And then records came along, and then radio came along, and then sheet music went down, and it continued to go down. So it's just this is not anything new in the music industry, really. Um let's see here. Okay, so uh yeah, don't get me started on reference tracks, music to motion. I am not as big a fan on reference tracks. Although I like to use the reference tracks that they provide on Taxi, but they're getting weirder. It's like you'll get 3 completely different songs sometimes. And I like the things on Taxi where I can really focus on and say, okay, all 3 of these were similar. I'm going to just pick this one and focus on kind of doing something like that. All right. Well, let me get back to how you can make your living on music and the truth behind that a little bit. So, all right. So here we are now in 2022, and I've been through all these roads in this video about the high, and now I'm getting to the lows of being a full-time music producer slash music composer slash music teacher. It's all part of music income. I count any music job. It's like Dave and I said, he's a full-time educator, but hey, if you can be doing music things full-time, then that's a full-time that's your main income. That's your only income is music related things. That's really what I'm after. And so right now it's a bit of a struggle. I'm still reeling from a tough end of the year where I lost a good friend and music partner to COVID in August of 2021. We were creating some killer stuff for Sync and an album that I still love called Orchestronic Stories. And we were off to the races with a bunch of other stuff. And he got COVID in a bad way and in the hospital and did not come out. And so that happened. And then 4 days after his death, I got a call from my brother's girlfriend that my brother did not wake up. And he was my baby brother, 6 years younger than me. We've been playing together. He's a fantastic drummer. He's one of the great drummers of the area where we come from, and it was in many bands, including a band that had been signed recently. And we had lots of plans, and that is still just weighing me down a lot. I don't know if any of you have lost a brother or somebody. I don't want to bring this down, but I do want to bring some reality into this conversation today. And that is that living a music life is no different than living any other life. Living only on music is not just sitting around eating grapes and playing your keyboard all day and keeping your feet up by the pool. Some days it is, but it's not always like that. And there can be really, really, I just lost my iPad, but that's okay. Um, it can be really, really tough, and it can be like a real. Thank you, Ronan. I appreciate that, but it can be really tough to live this way because unlike a job that some of you may have where you go and you oh man, oh great, glad you're in that. You're going to find a lot of stuff there, so make sure I'll welcome you to that here soon and post some things because there's lots to talk about in there. um but life can hit you just as hard when you're making all your money from music. It doesn't matter if you're a superstar. We all hear the sad stories of the Britney Spears and different people who go from the top to being basically, babysat, and stuff, or losing all their money or whatever. And so, yeah, it can be a struggle. And to be honest, for me, here I am in 2022, a full-time music producer for 22 years. I'm still paying all the bills with multiple incomes, but it right now is a fight every month just because and it just happens like this. Sometimes you get clients that pay religiously every first, or people who pay automatically, and you just get that money. And there are people who, you send a bill to and you don't get it for a month or ever, or they just quit, or they say, oh, I had somebody in the hospital, or my mother died, or whatever. And what are you going to do? Somebody's parent died. You can't just force them to send you money. But what's the difference between somebody paying their electric bill and paying their production bill that they ask for? They ask for electricity, and now they're also asking for music. So what is the difference? And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with. I was just talking to one of my great session guitar players in Nashville. His name is Mark Baldwin, and he has done such great work. And if you look him up on Spotify, he's just a master. And Mark has been one of my players for 17 years now. And he's also on my Player A records, on my jazz records that I do. And I also helped him kind of finish up an album of his a few years or last year and put it out. So, yeah, he was saying the same thing. He goes, why is what we do less, should it be paid less? Should it be paid lower? Why should we be paid as musicians or as someone who is doing music work for someone at a lower rate? If we were doing it for a company, they would pay our invoice just like anyone else. But if we're doing it for private people, it can be dicey. And that's why, I am starting to get to the point where I am craving some consistency. I'm craving consistency. And it's been 22 years, and a couple of times during there, I've had church jobs, and they have provided some weekly grocery money, or biweekly electric bill money, or whatever. That's been nice, but it's getting to the point where, as a person making my full-time income on music, while it's nice to get some stock income, and you guys all know what this feels like, to get some stock money feels good because you put your your heart into that stuff, and you put it up there, and money came back, right? So that's awesome. But it also is not going to pay for all your bills. It feels great to make a little bit of money from this video content that I put out on my channel. That's awesome. But it's not going to pay all my bills. And now it's getting to the point where my music clients are not going to pay all the bills. And this is where it gets to the point where making a full-time music income maybe isn't all it was cracked up to be. Making a music income is now a little bit tougher. And so, and this is something you never really get when you have a full-time job. At the very least, you can count on that income coming in every 2 weeks. You've even got something that I haven't had in 22 years, which is paid paid benefits. I've had to buy my own insurance, which is expensive on your own. I've had to pay dental. I've had to pay all that on my own. So that is, I'm not crying. My eye just issues. I'm not crying. You're crying. But seriously, that is just the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. When you live this entrepreneur life, you have to do everything. I have to do my own taxes, and most of my clients, none of that money is taxed. And I am a terrible saver. Terrible. It must be obvious from me. It's obvious to my wife, but it's obvious right now that income is not as great because I am a terrible saver. And so that means if I'm not saving for taxes, it's up to my accountant to really do some magic to make sure we're not paying thousands of dollars of taxes at the end of the year. So it's a great thing when you can make six figures as a full-time music producer, music arranger, music composer, whatever. But it's also a terrible thing when that income goes away or something. So let's talk about my next plans in order to continue making music income full time. I have plans. Oh, dude, I have plans. Don't worry. I have plans. First of all, the first plan and the plan for the past, gosh, maybe 12 or 13 years since I went back and finished my bachelor's. I just realized in 2009 that I was so close to a bachelor's. Why not finish it? And I went back and took a music history course. And I fell in love with music history. I fell in love with going to school and learning more. And I realized I didn't know what I wanted to know. I wanted to know more. There were people that I worked with in corporate jobs that knew more about music than I did. I said, this is not acceptable. And so I went back to school, and I started finding out that I really liked the information behind music history, music theory, music composition, and all those things, the school taught versions, And so I thought, dude, you know what I could do? I could get my degree and I could teach. I mean, certainly that could just be another income stream. Like I said, I've done lots of different things to make income as a music person. I've done gigs. I've done producing, I've done consulting, I've done marketing work for people, I do music videos for people. I've done all sorts of things. I've done working at church jobs. I've done private teaching. I've done all these kind of things. And that's all cool for me because that's all music income. As long as it all adds up to the bottom line of what I need to cover my bills or what I need to live my life. And that doesn't mean just cover bills, but have extra money to do things. As long as it all adds up, we're cool, right? It's good. So, um, I started seeing the opportunity and I said, I could teach in a very unique way, mainly because I have this background, this unique background as a music producer professionally in Nashville and in and out of Nashville. And so then I decided I'm going to get my master's and continue to have this next level of possibility for income, right? I wanted to have income from things like teaching. And teaching is a very honorable thing. It's not a cop out because you don't want to do the music work anymore. I'll always be producing a lot of people that will always need me and my certain thing that I do for them. I'll always do coaching. I will always do marketing and videos and things for people. I'll always do that kind of stuff. But I decided to get my master's in music, and I was going to get it in music history actually, and become a music history teacher because I love music history. I think it's really interesting. But at that time, I was moving towards licensing. I was moving towards all that kind of stuff, and I knew that I needed to really focus more on my composition. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was since I've been 13 years old. I've been writing songs, and so I just continued to write songs and talked and changed my master's into focusing on composing, and that's what I finished in May of 2021. And so now the next step is to get the right teaching component of music income to add to all my other music incomes. Again, it's just about finding a bunch of different music incomes. You cobble them together and you make a life that provides enough money for you to live. Now, it depends on what lifestyle you want. If you want to live on the beach in a mansion, well, That's probably not going to happen by cobbling a few incomes together. If you want to live in a nice house in a nice subdivision, or or maybe you can live very simply. Maybe all you need is an apartment and a couple rooms, and you don't need a lot of overhead. You just don't need it. And so, and my wife are headed that way right now. My wife and I are headed that way. We're downsizing and getting to the empty nest area time of our lives where it's just me and her, and we require less rooms, less house, all that kind of stuff. Pete Mason says it's crazy how music is something that means and offers so much to people on many levels, yet the people who make it are rarely fairly compensated. Certainly. Music to Motion says, I live in a van down by the river. Well, I'm headed there. Music to Motion also says, I have yet to try doing stock music, but maybe I should put some songs that were rejected by libraries or taxi up for stock music licensing. You definitely should. That's what I did last year. Dude, I threw everything that wasn't tied down into stock licensing, and made $300 or $400 a month, and still making that. So I've decided that my master's was not for nothing. It has to bring income, and that is likely not going to be income that I make online, unless I teach some kind of online music history or theory or composition, which I'm planning to get to in my Hello Composers channel. But for now, what the master's means is I've got to make some income, as my friend Dave Croft so coolly says, some cheddar. I have to make some cheddar from the masters, and that means I need to get some teaching income. So there are ongoing interviews with several music production schools that I'm talking to, and hopefully that might become part of my music income strategy. And I think that would be pretty apropos, that I would be able to teach composers and producers, or wannabe composers and producers, because that's what all of you are. And to me, that's important, is to teach what I know, and what I've been doing for the past 22 years is to teach that. And so teaching can be a component. It's not my life's calling only to teach, but I do believe it is something that I need to be doing. And that's what I do on this channel. I'm happy to do that and happy to make all these videos because people need to know. I just made a video on Audio Sparks, and I'll put it up here after I get this thing, after this live is over. But you can see that on my channel, and that video is just a kind of instructional video about how to use Audio Sparks, which is kind of a non-exclusive and exclusive library. So all that's going on. Clients are still in place. Stock music is still bringing in monthly income. MMI is starting to monetize. Everything is kind of things. It's a little though like I'm back in 2000, leaving the corporate job and jumping into something new. Now, it's not quite that bad. We won't be eating only ramen, thank goodness, because that's what we did in 2000 after I left corporate. Luckily, my daughter was young enough that I could tell her it was called special noodles because I put corn in it and cheese. So she thought the ramen noodles was something really special. But I'm telling you, and many of you know this feeling already, being musicians, living in a van down by the river, eating noodles in a cup with some hot water, woohoo, that's living. But we've all done it, I would imagine. So things are still in place. And if I end up with a teaching job here in the next month or so, I'm doing teaching now, by the way. I'm doing private teaching, and that is bringing in weekly income. But I would also move into some weekly, daily teaching at one of these universities, and that would add to the bottom line. As a matter of fact, that would be all I would need to get back up to the level of what we need. And so that's what I'm talking about for at least the next plans for now. And when I talk now, I mean now until I qualify for retirement or Social Security, I guess you could say. And when that happens, between my wife and I, there will be enough income coming in from our investments and that, which we don't have a lot of investments because, as I have told you already, I'm a terrible saver. But we are working on that to become more. And that's when I'm not going to retire. I would never retire from this. This is what I do to have fun. My wife really wonders when she comes in and sees me playing in here. She goes, "Why are you working on the weekends?" I'm like, "I am not working. I am playing. This is fun. I am making something that my heart wants to make." And that's hard, as you all know. All of you probably know this. It's hard for people that you live with to understand what the difference between working, especially if your job is music in any way, and you are making income that pays your family's bills in any way from music, to separate that from the music that you make because it's what you love to do. And so it's not easy. It's tough. And so I know probably a lot of you are struggle with that, and I struggle with that. But it's hard to turn off, obviously, on the weekends. I try my best, but I don't get very far because the weekends are the only time I feel like I don't have to work for clients. And so that's another reality and truth about living a music only life, is where do you draw the line? Do I leave this room and close the door at 6 p.m.? I try to, but some nights I have to get a video out, or I have to finish a brief for taxi and get it done because it's that day is the deadline. So, or a client needs something done and I messed it up, or they need it tomorrow, or whatever. So it's very hard to draw those lines when the work is. I mean, we're not digging ditches here. You know, we're not flying planes for the army. We're not doing really important things. We're messing around with music, right? So it's it's a it's a paradox about being a um, a music maker. Because at one point it's so much fun and it's so interesting to us and it brings us so much joy. It makes us so much uh, fun. It's so fun. But, you know, yeah, I know. Well, these are a lot of buttons, and I know I'm hitting them because they're buttons that all hit me, and I'm sure a lot of these you are. I hope that these are things that are really going to help you as you understand that this is a struggle. The struggle is real, as we say, and so my goal is to get into teaching and continue working for clients and continuing doing all the things I do. And hopefully the channel will continue to grow and be something that brings income. Hopefully stock will continue to bring income. And then sync is the big plan. That sync licensing brings what I call freedom. And when I look at freedom, I mean financial freedom while doing what I love. And when I look at retirement, all I think of retirement is as a time when I have less client deadlines. Now, that being said, there will likely be still brief deadlines and things like that. There might even be deadlines that I self-impose to put out videos at a certain time. I like to make sure that videos come out like around 11 on a day, 11 a.m. I just think that's a perfect time for my audience to get these things, and that's why I do my lives and my certain things right around this time. Because I live in Eastern time zone, I know I have a lot of people watching from Europe, from across the ocean, and then I'll have people watching from the other side of the country. So I am really working towards getting to a place where I can work on the things that I want to work on. And I'm not even there. And I've been doing this for 22 years, everybody. I mean, I have been doing this full time for 22 years, and I'm not even to the place I want to be at. So that should tell you something. Um, yeah, Lewis, thanks for joining from the UK. Cool. Lewis says, really loving the honesty here, Eric. It can be a bit isolated these days, and conversations like this in such a cool community really highlight the power of connection with like-minded folk. And that's really interesting you should say that, Lewis, because I almost did a live today that Steve and I talked about a little bit in our podcast last week about the caveman or the cave dweller. We're all cave dwellers. We sit here in our little caves and make music. But one of the things I want to talk about when I talk about session players and I talk about engineers and I talk about people you can hire is the fact that at some point, to move to the next level, you're all going to have to get out of your caves, just like I did. Eventually, at first, I was just a guy making music in my basement. then locally, then in Nashville, and still in Nashville, to be honest with you. All my high-end sync stuff, likely there's someone in Nashville involved. Not all of it, but most of it. So retirement for me equals freedom. And I don't mean I'm quit working for clients, teaching, or especially not composing and licensing, but it does bring consistency. I get some consistent money from the government. Hopefully by that time, I'm looking in the future, let's say 7 years from now, 8 years from now, I imagine YouTube's going to be there. YouTube was here 8 years ago, so it should be here 8 years from now. It was here. Licensing has been going on for television and stuff since the 80s or before. No one just figured they could get into it unless they lived in Hollywood. So licensing and YouTube and teaching and even clients are still going to be here at that time. What I do for them, we'll see here. But the main thing that I want to just kind of put to you is the fact that consistency is what's important. As you build your music income, make sure you find something that can consistently bring you income and set it up for consistency. If you need to have a job, maybe you can move towards educating yourself to the point where you can teach, especially in the discipline that you know. If you're a guitarist, maybe you really go hard on your guitar playing and education. Maybe you go back to school and get a guitar degree so that you can teach guitar at a larger level, either locally or at a university level. Maybe you are a person who works at churches and would be good at being a music director at churches. I still look for my next church job. I love working at churches, and it's just something that feeds me personally. I don't enjoy going to church and watching the music as much as I like being at church and leading the music or being part of the music. But to me, that's another possible thing that could happen anytime. I've actually applied for some local churches around here. So all of those things are music incomes. All of those things bring consistency. All of those things bring the possibility and the truth of living a music life full-time. All of the things that you're doing, bringing in music and bringing in consistent music income, because music is great, but if it's your only income and there's no consistency, it is hell. And it is the greatest idea or the stupidest idea. So my suggestion is find music incomes that pay regularly every week, 2 weeks. And if you don't have a music income that does this and you're not making much money on music, make sure you have another job that does that, pays you every week, 2 weeks, monthly. And then add all that to everything else that you want to do musically that is fun, and keep music fun. Don't just make it work. But the consistency is the key. That's the real truth. If you can't have consistency, you're going to fail, or at least you're going to get divorced, or you're going to be on the street or in a van down by the river. Ronan says, I hate being a cave dweller. I'm going to, for some reason, it told me to hide that. Yeah, Ronan, being a cave dweller is tough. And I think, though, we're all pretty much cave dwellers. I think the days of paying to go to big studios, and Steve has done this a little bit lately, has been going to studios with his band. That is tough because there's so much overhead and so much money that you have to spend to do that. Ronan says, I love a room full of creative and sometimes crazy people. Absolutely. It's fun to be with those. That's the best part of the job, is the hang with other musicians, for sure. Caleb says, guitar lessons have been my bread and butter for years now. Education is lucrative in any capacity, and you're absolutely right. I would encourage any music to utilize it in their income in some way. And I totally agree. I've started private lessons this year, and it is literally bringing in weekly income that pays bills. And it's through a company, and they pay me weekly every Monday. I mean, I know that there's a certain amount of money coming on Mondays. It's not much, but it's a certain amount, right? And that is the key to living a music life, is that check. So, and you don't always get that from every client. Ronan says the balance seems to tip in that direction a lot here in Los Angeles. Well, Ronan, if you're in Los Angeles, dude, you have a great music center there to explore. And you definitely need to not be a cave dweller. If I was in LA, there are so many people that I would be having lunch with right now to talk about working together and trying to get them helping me make music income with my clients, because it's another thing that I'm going to do a video on. And as part of this, actually, it's part of the session players video and cave dweller video I want to do. And the reason why it's worth it to get into a music city like that is that you can then find those people who are hungry to make money as session players and as engineers and the different things that you don't do, and have them become part of your machine, help them make music income, help your clients get what they want and get paid music income yourself. That's basically been my mantra for the past 22 years and how I made a music career. And I haven't got into that, and I will get into that in the next video we talk about. By the way, next week at this time, I'm going to be talking about my grand experiment with Pond 5 and Audio Jungle. We're going to jump back into stock for a minute, and I'm going to tell you an experiment I've been doing over the course of the month of March, and it is super interesting what I have found out. So make sure you join me next Thursday right here, same bat time, same bat channel, and we're going to talk about that. JMO, hey, there you are. Is it ever worth it to invest in the gear to go a little in debt? Well, I have. I just paid this off this week, and it was tough, but I'm glad I have it. At the same time, if you watch a video that Steve and I did just a few weeks ago on our podcast, we talk about how little gear is really needed. And of course, you could be talking about software or computer type stuff too, but I would be as careful with that as you can. Going in debt, as long as if you can afford the debt. I mean, debt's not a bad thing if you can pay it. And if you're good with money. If you're bad with money, debt is terrible. And I'm here to tell you. Rona says, yeah, things are opening up again, getting more comfortable. Great to hear. That's the way it is in LA. And to be honest, if I could fly out to LA enough, if I had the money to come out there, I would, mainly because I really want to go to Disneyland and California Adventure. But secondly, because I have a lot of producers, and that is where the sync licensing world kind of still is. I wouldn't want to live there, but I would want to go and have meetings, meet with some producers and players I know out there, and really kind of get more people on my team. There are singers I'm starting to use that live out there. I would love to meet them and kind of have personal relationships with them, and I think that's important. Music Demotion says, have you composed any underscore tension cues? I met with composer Michael Moss, and he thinks I should really focus on that genre. I don't really do a ton of that. I know Steve has done all sorts of that stuff. So you might get in touch with him and look at Production Music Academy, which you'll also find in the links below here. Well, folks, it is 12:30. We've gone for an hour and 28 minutes. Any last questions, I'll try to answer, but then I've got to cut off because I need to get out of here and get ready for Mr. Stevie B, and we're going to shoot our podcast for Monday. And we've got a really interesting thing that we're going to talk about today. But again, the truth in making a full-time music income, folks, is, if you've been waiting for the answer, here it is: consistency. Find a way to make a consistent income in at least one or two of your music incomes. Teaching, get clients to pay you monthly. And if you have a client and you sign on, do something for them, that's $1,000. We'll have them, and you know it's going to take 4 months. Have them pay you $250 a month on the first. Get a check every first of the month, or a PayPal payment, or whatever it is. You can set up PayPal subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. Get consistency happening and continue to expand your portfolio of small bets, as Tom Dupree said, and it certainly feels a lot like gambling for sure. I'll tell you that. Hey, thank you guys. Thanks, Lewis, for watching this from UK. Thanks, Music to Motion. Uh, JMO says, should you reach out to music supervisors directly? No. Watch Jesse on Sync My Music talk about this. He's got a great video on should you reach out to music supervisors directly. And I think you can. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like trying to take a pen and hit one tiny target versus really painting the world with the possibilities of what you can do with your music. And I think libraries, I think briefs that you apply to are much better possibilities, especially briefs that apply to a library that could bring you in to do more things, is better than just working so hard to find that one music supervisor to hope they have that one thing that you need for one song. It's just, it's very mono thinking, and it's just not going to serve you well in the end. You should form a list and a group of people that you know that you could talk to, but for sure, I wouldn't make that your only strategy. Good. I'm glad you subscribed to Stevie B's channel. You should. He's excellent. And Rona says, thanks, Eric. We'll post questions on the Discord, which the link is below. Absolutely. The link is below in all my videos for the Discord. Please join if you've joined us here today. If you're new, Sean Howard says, getting to libraries first increases chances with a custom job. I believe in libraries. I like libraries. It's comfortable for me to create bunches of work for music and be in places where people will find you. Signature Music Services, thank you for being here today, and I hope you have a great day. And thank you very much. I appreciate the comment. And everyone who's joined today, man, 26 folks in here, and it's been up to 27. It's just great to have all of you in here on these lives. It's so fun to talk to you. Amen and amen, Sean. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any more questions about what I've been talking to in this long video, make sure you put them in the comments below, and I will respond with as much as needs to be said. I love to talk and type. So again, thanks everybody. Have a great day. Gonna end the stream now so I can go off and see my buddy, Mr. Stevie B, and do our podcast today. So have a great day. Thanks for joining, and continued success in making music your only income. Good luck with that. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.